Oops, I did it again. Sorry. It wasn't me. His computer everything just turned off all of a sudden, and that's what happens. Sometimes you get gremlins in the machine. Sorry about that. Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. If you're watching us over here on YouTube or on any of the other platforms, and you're like, what happened to the Rumble stream? I will get the Rumble stream back up during the commercial break, but I wanted to finish this interview with Vance Ginn, who's joining us now. Sorry about that, Vance. I wanted to ask you next about the instability of these regional banks around the country because it's got a lot of people nervous. Some people are nervous, but for me, I'm kind of thinking, man, I need to find me a bank where it's just on the edge of collapse and I could take out a huge loan from it right before it collapses. You got any leads for us, Vance?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, and the FDIC are bailing out all depositors. When we saw Silicon Valley Bank, and other banks that are out there, they're basically saying, "Look, it's not just $250,000 that will backstop you on your deposits. We'll go up to $1 million or more." It's kind of mind-boggling what's going on. But you're exactly right, Austin, that it leads to what we call moral hazard, where you take more risk than you otherwise would. You wouldn't look at your bank as much as you otherwise would either. And it's one reason that's kind of a problem with the FDIC, right? Like having an insured deposit overall is that we really don't care too much about where our bank is at unless you had more than $250,000 in the bank, which maybe you do, Austin. I don't have that much in there, maybe one day. But if I did, right, I would spread it out among different banks. That way you don't have to worry about it. And that's usually what happens. But now there's this moral hazard to where we're going to take more risk, taking on more loans. And I think that the banks will also see that, and they'll start giving out more loans that are riskier loans that won't be paid back. And so what happened during that time of Silicon Valley Bank and some of these other bank failures, and then recently JP Morgan, was buying out First Republic Bank. You have the situation where that people say, you know what, the government, meaning the taxpayer, us, are going to pay for that at the end of the day. Let's take on more risk, and let's take money out of the smaller banks and these regional banks and put it in the bigger banks where the government is going to bail out. And so these banks that are going across the country, these smaller banks are really getting hurt because deposits are being reduced, meaning people are taking money out of the bank, putting in the bigger banks. And so we're seeing a lot of these other smaller banks that are going to fail in the process.
Talk to us about the process of taking out a loan. Is it getting harder because of things like this? And I mean, what do we expect in the near future regarding interest rates and the possibility of being able to like refinancing your homes and all kinds of different things? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, I've looked at some of these, the bank tightness, the liquidity tightness, the credit tightness that's out there in the marketplace. And what you see is that at these regional banks, I mean, because deposits are being reduced, remember, they take some of those deposits and then they lend them out as part of our fractional reserve banking system. If they have less deposits, that means less money they can lend out. So regional banks, the credit is tightening quite a bit. Interest rates are going up, meaning that it's going to be a little bit more costly for you to get to borrow money. But at the larger banks, they have a lot more liquidity. I mean, their deposits are actually increasing, so they have more money to lend out. The Fed even put more money in the economy as well as a backstop. So given you have all that situation, you have regional banks, smaller banks that are tighter on their lending standards right now. The bigger banks are more loose on their lending standards. And so we'll see what happens at the end of the day. I mean, I think that the Fed, they just raised interest rates by quarter, it's called 25 basis points from to 5 to 5.25%. So that's the highest right now for the federal funds rate. And then that rate is then connected to some extent to the 10-year Treasury note rate, the 30-year Treasury note rate, which connects to our car loan rates and our mortgage rates. So all these things are going up. Mortgage rates are around 7% right now. A little over a year ago, they were close to 2 to 3%. I mean, that's a sizable increase in the amount of interest that you're paying on your mortgage. And it also means that mortgage payments per month are doubling, which is why we're seeing some cooling in the housing market across the country. So, Austin, I think that's what the audience could really expect is higher interest rates, and that will then have a distortive effect to the overall economy, to where I think we're going to see more contraction, deeper recession going into the second half of the year.
Is there a political angle to which banks get bailed out and which ones don't? Perhaps who's invested in which bank and who has clout to decide what gets bailed out versus, sort of a la 2008 Bear Stearns versus Goldman Sachs?
I think there is. I mean, there's a lot of connections that happen between the people that are at the Fed, at the Treasury. Many of them used to work at Goldman Sachs or some of these larger investment and banking companies, and so there's some connection that's there. They will make the argument, though, that these are those banks that have systemic risk quote unquote systemic risk that you'll hear a lot about, to where if those banks or investment firms were to fail, then that would have a domino effect on a lot of the other smaller banks across the country. And then the overall economy would be hurt as well. But I think if you look at when the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, it was really created to be a lender of last resort. Period. It wasn't supposed to be manipulating economies, open market operations. It really, like most government programs, it grew legs of its own and continued to expand and what I think is infiltrate the overall economy. And now we're seeing that with these bailouts of these banks and not understanding exactly which ones are going to be next, which puts a lot of uncertainty in the economy and uncertainty with business and employers as well. So it's something that we need to get away from at some point. I always say in the Fed, right? We talked about that a few times here. But I think we also got to get control of government spending with a spending limit. And this debt ceiling deal, I think, is a good step in that direction. So let's see what happens, in the next couple of months. And one thing too, Austin, is that Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, said that the beginning of June is when that we should run out of our extraordinary measures to pay on the debt, right? They use revenue streams to continue to pay off the debt, make sure that those payments are being made. That may run out at the beginning of June. That's where things could really hit the fan, if you will, potentially from what Janet Yellen's saying. So there's not much time for them to get a deal done.
No kidding, and it's certainly the kind of gamesmanship that is indicative of how broken Washington is. Vance, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go? Anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, Austin, you mentioned Senior Fellow of Austin Americans for Tax Reform earlier. I'm also the host of the Let People Prosper show that you can find on all your major platforms out there. I have on a lot of good guests to talk about these economic issues. Also, weekly, I do This Week's Economy to kind of an overview, about 10 to 15 minutes of just the key issues going on across the country that I think many in your audience would like to check out.
What we need to do is we need to get the Wake Up America show and we need to get the Let People Prosper show, and we need to
Yeah.
make that the beginnings of a Liberty network and just do a, 12 to 24-hour news cycle, but all Liberty stuff. What do you think,
Yes.
Vance?
I love it. I love it.
All
Let's
right,
do
let's talk
it.
about it and make it happen. Vance, again, thank you very much for your time today. We're grateful. Sorry about the technical issues that we had a little bit earlier.
It happens, man. It's probably just the progressives trying to come after us.
I didn't like this talk. It was the Federal Reserve. They shut us
There
down.
you go.
Take
Yeah.
take care, Vance. Have a great
All
day.
right.
What do you think of Vance Ginn? Send us a text 573-319-1586. Again, you can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Apologize for the technical issues that we had a little bit earlier. People who were asking us, computer just turned off and then turned right back on. So sometimes that happens. It's nice to see all of our listeners who are joining us over on YouTube as well as on Rumble. If you're enjoying what you see today, click that like button. Help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. The studio mode, because of the way that the show shut down, I'm going to essentially do in real time on the fly, set up a quick little video for you so that you can watch it. In order for me to do that, I have to do it live because of what happened with the technical issues. So I hope you'll understand. Just give me a very brief second while I get it set up. I want to be able to play this Tucker Carlson clip for you. And I just have to set it up on the fly so that you can actually watch it. Let's take a listen.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies. But most of the time, that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read in the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
It's interesting. That's Tucker Carlson making an announcement that he will be doing a show, bringing his show to Twitter, which honestly I find like shocking and quite fascinating, because we all believed that him being under contract would prevent him from being able to do something like this until 2025. But what I'm reading in the Wall Street Journal, he's saying he's launching this new show on Twitter. This means that he could be on a collision course with his former employer, right? He says, starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We're back, right? This comes after the news about him parting ways with Fox News. Now, his lawyer, Brian Friedman, sent a letter to Fox executives alleging that Fox News had breached its contract with Mr. Carlson and requested that the company preserve documents. According to people who are familiar with this matter, Axios had earlier reported on this letter, but the lawyer isn't speaking out any more than that. So when Tucker left Fox News, he was in the middle of this multi-year contract with Fox, and he's apparently now trying to renegotiate it to try and get out of it, saying that Fox breached their contract, therefore Tucker should be able to be let out of it. So what I thought was interesting, too, was Twitter's chief executive, Elon Musk, tweeted on Tuesday that he wants to, quote, be clear that we have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever. Tucker is subject to the same rules and rewards of all content creators, which I actually think is, if that's true, I don't know if I believe that. If that's true, I think that's kind of a good thing, especially because of the way Elon has started to run Twitter in a very egalitarian way, where it was much more hierarchical before with blue checks. Now, anybody can get a blue check as long as they verify and pay the money for the service. But if he had created this system where Tucker Carlson was going to get special treatment, and people like ourselves, remember we used to stream the show on Twitter, and then all of a sudden media producer, which allowed us to stream, just disappeared a couple of weeks ago, and that took away a significant chunk of viewership, because that's one of my bigger audiences is on Twitter. And so if he had granted that to Tucker and nobody else could stream a show, I would have been a little bit upset. Obviously, there's no comparison in terms of audience size. That's, and I know people who are Tucker fans would say, who gives a crap about you? But the fact is that I think it would show some hypocrisy on Elon's part to just make that special exemption for Tucker and then nobody else can do it, right? So it will be interesting to see if Elon Musk rolls out a platform where people like myself, Tucker Carlson, anybody can go in and stream just like we do on YouTube or on Twitch or on Facebook or on YouTube or Rumble, what have you. Spreely TV, the new app we're going to talk about with my buddy John Burke, who's going to be joining me in 5 minutes. As a matter of fact, I got to go get John right now. It's time. And make the big announcement. Maybe you heard it yesterday about the exciting new sponsor that we have brought on the Wake Up America show. We are definitely on track to being able to make that Liberty Network. Maybe we will have a Van Skin, Let People Prosper show, Wake Up America show. Let's get to Judge Napolitano show on as well. How many libertarians do you think that we can hire and give their own shows to turn us into a 24-hour news network? What would you think? You're going to be like the Libertarian Daily Wire. What do you think? You want to see AP be the head of something like that? Well, you can help make it happen. Visit apforlibertyshop.com. Support the show. Get some awesome freedom-loving merch. or become a monthly sponsor to help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. We got lots more exciting news and guests to come when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts
than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How are you feeling today? Good. Well, I'm glad the studio audience is so fired up. How about the audience out there on the live streams? Oh, I can't hear you. There's only one way to let us know that you like what you're hearing and seeing today, and that's to click that like button on any of the networks that you're watching us today, and I'd be super grateful. Help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, as well as the principles of free speech, which is what my next guest is going to join us to talk about. His name is John Burke. He's the All-American Savage. He's got his own show and his own awesome business, which I'm excited to introduce to you today, Shell Shock CBD. John Burke now joining us on the show. Good morning, John. Thanks for joining us.
Brother, how are you doing today?
Doing good. What did you think of the news of Tucker Carlson going from a mainstream news network, hundreds of millions of dollars, tons of money invested into him? He gets canned. He goes to work for Twitter. I mean, he's basically stepping into our space, right? I guess come on in. The water's fine. How do you feel?
I love it. I like the idea that he's going to go do his own thing. I think a lot of people they're fed up with Fox. They're fed up with CNN. Everybody's getting sick of the same MSM garbage from both sides. It's just that they kind of say that, Fox leans more conservative. No, they're a bunch of shills as well. I like what he's doing. Didn't see it coming. I mean, did you see that coming?
No idea. Yeah, no, it shocked me, honestly. But when he was talking to Elon Musk the other day, I kind of felt like something was up.
Yeah.
But now it looks as if, this could be the death knell for the mainstream media. John, what do you think?
I think it's always going to exist. You're always going to have a loyal base for CNN, Fox, and unfortunately, we call them stupid people. Unfortunately, so as long as those stupid people exist, you're going to have these MSM networks. Because as soon as Fox got rid of Tucker, who'd they replace him with? The ex, what I'm talking
Kilmeade,
about.
yeah.
So it's just kind of like Fox is doing everything they can to, I guess, save themselves. They're hemorrhaging hard right now. The fact that Elon jumped on that, it's incredible. It's a smart business move. You're going to get more independent journalism over there, because I think that's where it's going to go now. Nobody believes what the MSM has to say, but you look at these various different independent journalists on Instagram, for example, that are now making their money going out there and reporting unbiased reports. It's great to see. So I love seeing this. It's great to see that Tucker's going to just be like, deuces out. I'm going to Twitter. If you were to try and shut me up, they're not going to over there. But I am concerned about what Elon's going to do, because he talks about free speech. And I know as a libertarian, you're like a free speech person as well. But the one thing that did concern me is when we talked about Alex Jones. I'm not an Alex Jones fan, but Elon's like, that guy's not coming on this platform. It's like, so then you're still being selective. So it's, trust that guy with a grain of salt, as with anybody, but I do like seeing it. It's nice.
I feel the same way. I'm like you. I was never really a big Alex Jones fan. I used to listen to him back in 2008 because he was the only one who would talk to Ron Paul, who I was a big fan of. But I do think that it's problematic that he wouldn't allow Alex Jones on the platform. Now, when it came, I saw he banned some, pedophile supporter the other day, and I was kind of like, all right, well, at that point in time, maybe, there do have to be some standards here or there. But but the thing is that there are very few platforms where you can actually have free speech. I don't know what the deal is with Alex Jones on Rumble. I know you were complaining the other day because a lot of the alternative media, John, they play their favorites as well. Every time you go onto Rumble, for example, at the very top of the social network there, you'll see it's the same people, Russell Brand and Kimberly Guilfoyle and all that kind of stuff. And it's really hard for smaller creators like ourselves to get a leg up, because it seems like the same old people always pushing you back down,
I hate to make the comparison, but I was on Twitch, you were on Twitch, and I knew Twitch, the Alphabet Mafia was going to come for me eventually. It was like, when you have discussions about COVID, you have discussions about transgender ideologies, they're going to take that as an affront to their existence. Like, you're committing genocide by just having these conversations where you disagree. And what Twitch made good on, though, was that they did support the smaller streamers. Rumble, I'm not seeing it. And I've got contacts in Rumble. I've hit them up on multiple different fronts saying, look, you want grassroots content creators to come over here that actually have medium to small voices, elevate them, grow your platform. But yeah, all I'm seeing so far is every single day, Austin, I go on there and it's Russell Brand. Not that I have anything against these people, But it's like, if you want people to come over and support your program or your platform, do it in return. And to go to your thing about free speech, there is not going to be any platform that's going to have free speech. It's impossible. You're going to have a set of terms of services. For example, the child pornography, things like that. And when Elon says we're a free speech platform, it's like, you're not. But I think you should have marketed in the sense of like, we're not as draconian as these other platforms saying, you can have these. Because remember, when Elon first bought it, or the word was that Elon first bought it, the old regime was out, new regime is in. I saw everybody instantly start tweeting. It's like, trans women aren't real women, and they weren't getting banned for it. So it's kind of like, okay, these are the things that we should allow on this platform, or at least Elon is, which is a good thing. Like, we need the discussion, we need the conversation. But when it comes to things like, the child pornography, you're going to have to get rid of it, which to this day, I still don't understand. I can't make a trans shooter joke, but you can post pornography on there. So it's just kind of like, there's still some double standards. And it's like, okay, what's worse, a dark humor or a dude, a trans dude, like railing out? Because I had that person on for a debate one time, and he was a trans person. And, when I went to go look at the profile, I was like, oh my God.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Hope you're doing well. Let's give our guest a round of applause, John Burke. I got to say, there are very few podcasts that I have time to actually watch, usually after the fact, and even fewer that I will actually tune in when they're live. And the one that I tune into whenever I get that alert is your show on Rumble in the afternoons, just because you're so friggin' funny. It's so rare to find somebody who actually has a sense of humor these days. I highly recommend that my audience check out Burke streaming on tons of major social platforms. Which ones have you not been banned from, John?
I think Rumble so far.
Is it just
and I'm
Rumble?
working on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really excited about this new project that you contacted me about last week. I got to have a conversation with the CEO of this new project that's a free speech project that's all about bringing creators together. I actually have already started making friends with some of the people in the network. Last week, I had Dominic Izzo on the show, and he was fantastic. The audience really loved him. And I'm curious if you wouldn't mind just kind of sharing a little bit with our audience about this new free speech platform.
So what we saw is like Andy Frisell is a friend of mine. He does the Hard AF podcast, Real AF podcast, very, very popular podcast. But like maybe 6 months ago, iTunes is like really throttling his reach and stuff like that, because he was talking about a lot of COVID issues, and not even just like, he was just having discussions like a lot of people have done. And Apple started like really hindering his reach. So there have been so many different platforms where you have creators such as yourself go on there, and you're just, it's like talk radio. You have an opinion. It's not saying like, look, I am not Anthony Fauci. I'm not the so-called expert on COVID. That guy's a joke anyway. But to have conversations is what's needed in much less the world, but not just America. But this platform, it's Spreely.tv or the Freedom Hub app. It's all intertwined. It basically gives some podcasters that we've pre-selected that are good at what they do a platform where their content will never be yanked. So it's called Freedom Hub. You can download it in the App Store. It streams on Roku, Fire Stick. And it's monetized now, so it's actually generating funds, so it can be self-sustaining. And we're getting veteran-owned and patriotic businesses to come in and support those podcasters. So it's creating its own little economy. So think of it as like a different version of like AM talk radio, but with just some different voices, different opinions, because there's a lot of conservatives. I'd asked about bringing you on. I was like, we need Austin. He's a libertarian. He's like, we need a more centralized voice. It's like, you don't want to have it just all right-leaning. So it's growing. It's been in the works for, man, I want to say a year and some change now. And like I said, if for whatever reason you get banned on a platform, it's always going to be on the Freedom Hub app. It'll never go away.
It's great. Yeah. And I signed up last week, and we are streaming over there right now. You can actually find that link over on my Twitter page if you'd like to support that new freedom loving network. John, I'm really excited about this huge opportunity that you have granted to the Wake Up America show to continue to grow, because I have big dreams and plans and goals for this show to continue to spread the message of freedom, which is what I believe in. And, I'm excited to be able to team up with somebody like yourself to help support your business, which is in many ways centered around freedom. It's a veteran-owned business, and I really love the branding, which is why I'm super excited to introduce to my audience, and they can see it on screen right now, this product line called Shell Shock CBD. Now, I'm just going to start by telling you this story very briefly, John. A couple of years ago, I went to the Renaissance Festival in Kansas City, and I tried Delta 8. They had these like caramel they had like these caramel candies or something like that, and I was like, oh, because it wasn't legal, weed wasn't legal in Missouri, but you could get Delta 8. So I was like, all right, I'll try this stuff, whatever, it's legal, so it must be fine. Tried it, nothing happened. Although I did see some like fairies and like people I thought looked like pirates, but it was a Renaissance festival, so that could have been it. But I was like, nothing happened. So last week you sent me this box, and I got this gummy, Halo gummies, Delta 8 cotton candy, and I'm like, it'll probably be nothing gonna happen or stuff like that. And I would have had to call you up and be like, John, I can't feel anything, man. I can't endorse this product. Well, I probably should have prepared for a longer night than I had prepared for, because it was like crimson and clover over and over. And my wife was super excited. She doesn't consume any intoxicants or anything like that, but she loves the ashwagandha and she loves the supplements. And I can't wait to get through this whole product line. Talk to us about Shell Shock CBD and this a great product line, and then tell us, why you decided to sponsor the Wake Up America show. So go ahead and start from there.
Yeah, we launched Shell Shock back in 2019. As I didn't believe in the CBD industry at all. I thought it was all snake oil, because I've had people market it as like, oh yeah, CBD cures cancer, and it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. But I had a friend, he's like, no, I just take it for anxiety and stress. It's like, just try it. So he gave me a bottle. I was like, I'll have an open mind. And I tried it, and it worked. And I was like, bro, it doesn't get you high. It doesn't get you stoned. Everybody's kind of like, CBD gets you stoned. Delta 8's different. Delta 8 will get you stoned. Yeah. But the CBD for the anxiety, man, we've got hundreds and hundreds of customers that have said they've reached out and said, I've taken the CBD. It's lowered my blood pressure. We have the CBD hemp tea. It's great for just, say like you're a stay-at-home mom and the kids are stressing you the hell out. You need something to just kind of take the edge off that's non-intoxicating. CBD is a great way to go. We've got isolate, we've got full spectrum, we've got a lot of different variety of options, and we undercut the market by like 40%. You see, the reason a lot of people are charging so much is because when you actually have a good product and you're not watering your stuff down like many companies do. Like if you buy your stuff from the gas station, you're getting gas station supplements. That's the difference there. So we invested a lot into making sure that our products were great, and everything that we release, we test personally. And if I don't like it, we're not releasing it. So we launched in 2019, dude, and we hit the ground running, very successful right off the bat, because the price point primarily. And the other biggest thing was people kind of that doubted it at first. We're like, I've tried, it actually works. Like, yes, I get where you're coming from as far as all the doubt. We launched the Delta 8, which to this day, dude, I do not understand how marijuana can be legal in Colorado, but Delta 8 isn't. Because right now, big weed has become big pharma. They don't want, because Delta 8 is cheaper. It's better for me, at least. And you don't have to, you don't have to smoke it. You don't have to screw up your lungs. It's just one little gummy, one little edible, and you're there within 45 minutes. And the first time I tried Delta 8, I was kind of like, oh my God. I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is freaking amazing. It just makes you feel like, oh, dude, even sex is better on it. It's great.
Well, speaking of, actually, there's another product over here that people can see right there. Look at that.
This was the first one. This was the first one you asked for too. It was like, give me the lube. I'm like, all right.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I will put a little bit of the blame on my wife, though. She was like, "Ooh, I want that."
Yeah, the CBD lubricant. It's water based, washes off very easily. There's the benefits of CBD on the skin are incredible, and you can go do your research on this. People are like, it's all a sham. Just go do the research now. It's to the point where we're having to get people to try and open their minds. And I got to mention this: all of our products come with a money back guarantee. If it doesn't work, I will refund your money. We're that confident. And then our second seller is the rack out gummies, because like in the veteran space, our sleep is just it's hit or miss. A lot of dudes cannot achieve a good night's sleep because you get so accustomed to waking up at the drop of a pen, or law enforcement as well.
So we've got a code set up for me and my audience, who I know is primed and ready to get some of this stuff because they want those health benefits as well. Or they want to go on a little Renaissance festival trip in their heads. AP for Liberty is the code. So they go to shellshockcbd.com, and if they enter in the code AP for Liberty, that's how they can track that it came through us, right?
100%.
Okay, great. So shellshockcbd.com. And John, if you wouldn't mind, because obviously my audience is super loyal and a lot of them know you. Not everybody does and stuff like that. But if you wouldn't mind, I'm not just asking for you to pat me on the back, but tell the audience perhaps, why you decided to sponsor the Wake Up America show in such a big way.
Because you're white. No.
No. Hate crime.
No,
Hate crime.
no, you and I have gone back for a while. Like I remember you opened my mind to the whole idea of the Second Amendment, to Milton Friedman economics, a lot of libertarian, because I was a hardcore person on the right, and I think a lot of it was tying my identity into the right. You kind of came in whatever the young kids call it, red pill, blue pill, black. I don't know what the pills are these days, but it's kind of like you just kind of open my eyes, like, oh wow, I've been wrong this entire time, and you start to do more research of the Constitution. But anyway, I've seen what you've done on the outside as far as like, the radio station things you got going for you. You're making your stands here and there. You've got a very loud voice. You don't bend the knee, and I respect that. So when I reached out to you, it's like, oh shit, Austin's kind of like, he's like a free agent right now. We need to secure this guy. Let's go sponsor a show, because it's honestly, you do have a loyal following, but also I like what you have to say, because you're very you don't go like straight for the knife in the heart. You kind of poke the hornet's nest with a lot of your posts that make people think, and it pisses a lot of people off. And it's like, but that's what we need. When you get something like that, you really see people come out of the woodwork that are going to start finger pointing and browbeating. But then there are those kind of like myself, so like, wait a minute, this motherfucker's got a point. Like, oh man, like he's making a question.
So get this. This is hilarious. The other day, I made this post and it really made people angry. Where I said, because there's two bills in Missouri that are being debated right now at the state level. One is regarding sports betting, and the other one is regarding transgender, males in female sports. So all I said was, I am supporting Missouri's bill to legalize sports betting. In completely unrelated news, I am opposing the bill that would prevent transgender men from playing in female sports. And people were so mad. They were like, I can't believe you're supporting transgenders. You're disgusting. And I'm just like, just think about it for just a second. Like you
That's
got
the problem.
it, right?
When you have like, when you've got a higher level of like comedy or high level of humor, however you want to phrase that, some people are just gonna have like this initial emotional reaction. But when you kind of sit there and read some of the stuff you post, it's like, I see what he's driving at here. It's kind of like they call it the breadcrumb method.
There are two kinds of people in the world: people who can extrapolate from incomplete information. That's it right there. But I mean, half the world just sat there and went, what? Yeah. What's going on?
I like the new thing you're doing, because I've been sitting here, racking my brain on this as far as like transgenderism. And I love how it went from like shell shock to that, but I love when conversations flow. How the thing on with conservatives is that if they're so adamant that transgenderism is a mental disorder, which I agree with it is, then why is it that we celebrate on the right, they do rather, the likes of Blair White because they agree politically? It's like when I see pictures of, for example, the female swimmer, what was her name?
Leah Thomas?
No, well, the one that
Riley Gaines.
Against Riley Gaines. When I see Riley Gaines taking pictures with Bruce Jenner and they're chumming it up, it's like, you do realize you're taking pictures of the very same person that opened the door and ushered this type of idea mainstream society. And it's like, I mean, I'm all about freedom. I get like, when you're 18, you do what you want. I was like, but at least be, honest and altruistic in your beliefs. If you're going to say that transgenderism is the bane of existence, which a lot of conservatives do, but then they turn around, if somebody agrees with them politically, it's like, well, and in the comments I'll even see them call them by their preferred pronouns. Like, y'all are some shills, like y'all are some sellouts.
And that's the thing, right? It's because it's all about money and about greed and about what is good for me right now versus what's good for and that's why politicians especially, will change on a dime. They'll have one position one day, and it's like, why is Donald Trump supporting Disney in the fight against Ron DeSantis, right? You know why? Because it's convenient for Trump. If it were convenient for Trump to oppose Disney, he would do that, right? It's not about principle.
Bro. When you try and tell that to people, and it's kind of like, because I mean, Trump, we have to give him credit on one thing. He does know how to develop a cult. I was a part of it, but Trump is like, he has such loyal followers because of his hatred to the left. But then if you go against Trump, he's going to start favoring the left. And I'm kind of like, wait a minute, guys, you're not even seeing some consistency in his beliefs here. He talks about fake news CNN for years, which I agree with. But then he goes and does a CNN town hall. And I'm kind of like, bro, you are sending your people mixed messages. Meanwhile, you get J6ers rotting. He's not done anything for them. And when you start looking at the stuff, it's like, I did not have the problems that I do with Trump now until he started going after DeSantis, because DeSantis is actually trying to get stuff done over in Florida. They just passed constitutional carry. They're doing a lot of great things over there. But Trump, if he views anybody as being a potential threat, he's going to go after them. Well, back in 2016, 2015, it was Donald, it was Cruz, it was the rest of them. Nobody really liked those guys because they weren't really doing to the effect of what DeSantis is doing right now. He is really battling the culture war. He's banning the pornography from the schools and stuff like that. The Don't Say Gay bill, the parental right bill, whatever you want to call it, which they just went from, it was ending at K3. Now they said all grades, like all that. They got rid of CRT. It's like, we don't need this stuff. And that's just, if that's my taxpayer money, yeah, I don't want this bull crap being fed to my kids. Teach them the basics. And so when Trump keeps punching on DeSantis and he just creates this massive rift within the GOP, and then you see his loyalists like Carrie Lake over there just coming to his defense. Like, these people are adopting leftist tactics to attack the right. It's like, wow, man, y'all are some very disingenuous, just sellouts.
Yeah, it's what's good for me today, right? And we know what it's about. A cheeky mayor over in the live stream, she's kind of one of our my new favorite followers. She says, or do they see the difference between someone who is trying to force them to do something versus someone who doesn't? That would be a good point, but if you didn't understand that the social conservative mindset, John, is to reject transgenderism in its entirety. So, I mean, the true social conservatives are going to say, well, I don't care if it's Blair White or if it's, some leftist Dylan Mulvaney. At the end of the day, it's all sin, it's all terrible, and it all should be expunged from polite society, versus the more libertarian mindset. And that's really what I'm trying to get them to do, John, is to realize how many of them are actually taking a socially liberal view, or you might say libertarian view, of tolerance when it comes to people like Blair White and others, because they don't advance a communist socialist mindset. And so that in right there, I mean, again, a lot of people are going to get mad, but there's going to be the few John Burks out there, right, who are going to be like, oh, wait a minute, this is a good point, right? And we bring more people to these ideas. Real quick, John, because we're running towards the end of this segment. One of our listeners had a question for you, specifically related to the Shell Shock CBD products. Which product do you recommend for relaxing from stress? If somebody's got a lot of stress, is there any of these items that you would recommend from your product line that are good for stress?
Yeah, the CBD oil. The CBD oil is wonderful. We also have it in gummy form. They're called the Fallout gummies, 25 milligrams of CBD. If you're wanting to get high, you will fail a drug test, the Delta 8 or the Delta 9. You were going to get high. But yeah, the CBD oil itself does wonders for that, man. It definitely takes the edge off. Give it about 20 minutes to kick in. And like I said, if it doesn't work for you, on the website, scroll to the bottom, it says refund policy. Click that, and we basically just say, send us the product back. We'll send you the shipping for it. Doesn't cost you a dime, and I will refund your money. I'm that confident that it's going to work.
There you go. And it's endorsed by Buddha Trump, who's down there holding all the Delta bar down there. Looks like Willy Wonka.
As long as we get Buddha Trump, we're golden.
Hey, John, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go? Perhaps plug your show?
Yeah, you can find me streaming over at Rumble. Just John Burke. Look it up, John Burke Podcast, All American Savage Show. You can find it wherever podcasts are downloaded, primarily on the Freedom Hub app. And then over on Twitter at John Burke 1776 and Instagram John Burke 1776 if I don't get banned. So
yeah, it's a great show and I watch it every day. It makes me laugh every single day, especially when we start screaming obscenities. John Burke, okay, hey, thanks so much for supporting the Wake Up America show, John. We're going to do everything we can to move product for you. We appreciate you supporting us and our show and the principles of liberty.
Absolutely.
You have a great
Appreciate
day.
It, brother. You too, man. Thank you.
Yep. What did you think of John Burke? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Isn't that exciting? Look at that. Check it out. Shell Shock CBD steps in a big way. Our sponsors help make the Wake Up America show great again. I love it. I'm going to go take a brief little commercial break because guess what? We got another guest coming up, Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's coming up next. RFK Jr. says that the CIA killed JFK. RFK, CIA, JFK, JK, LOL, WTF, OMG, BBQ. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupamerica.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupamerica.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1. You can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2. Most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamerica.show.com. What did you think of John Burke? Wasn't he great? Yeah, well, the good news is for all you out there who are saying that you loved John, you loved that interview, well, he's going to be a regular guest now. So we're going to have John Burke on bi-weekly on this show. He is a great guest, and we'll look forward to more exciting conversations with him going forward. We're also very grateful for his sponsorship of the Wake Up America show. Make sure you check out his website, shellshockcbd.com, veteran-owned business. And of course, use that code AP for Liberty if you decide to buy some products to help support the show as well. All right, now it's time to talk to a guest who is so great that we have to have him on every week. And every week we look forward to having him here with us. He is one of the leading figures of the fight for liberty here in the United States, and I would say around the world. His coverage of the Ukraine crisis has gotten millions of views, possibly even billions. So many people are tuning in to hear Judge Napolitano's viewpoints, and we're just grateful he's got time for us at all. Joining us now, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning, Judge.
Oh, Austin, it's the highlight of my week to be with you and to be a small part of your success in this crazy media world in which we both live and work.
Certainly things are going wild. It feels as if the mainstream media is dying with all of the rumblings and earthquakes that have been happening in the mainstream media. And with the success of shows like yours and mine and so many others, it feels as if the alternative media will one day become the mainstream media. But of course, that's a conversation for another day, Judge. I'd like to get your thoughts on what's happening in regards to this civil trial against Donald Trump, which rendered a judgment in the amount of $5 million based on the claims that Donald Trump assaulted and potentially raped, although apparently the rape allegations were not part of the consideration from the jury. But in regards to sexual assault, he was, I guess you might say, found guilty. How do you analyze this, Judge?
Well, I hope it wasn't political. I hope that the jury made its decision just on the basis of the evidence that was presented to them. Donald Trump chose not to be in the courtroom, which always insults a jury. There's no requirement for a defendant to be there in a civil case. In a criminal case, because of constitutional implications, the defendant must always physically be there. So that was a strike against him. He presented no evidence whatsoever, not even himself, since he wasn't in the courtroom, to deny it. His lawyers were reduced to playing a tape of him under oath denying it, during which he made a lot of blunders that actually helped the plaintiff. On the other hand, the court did things that I would not have allowed. The court allowed, under the prior bad acts rule, a rule in the federal system and in New York, which allows a plaintiff or the government in a criminal case to introduce evidence of similar behavior in which the defendant has engaged, not related to the behavior in this case, but similar, to show a pattern in his life. So the judge in this case permitted the Access Hollywood tape to be played 5 times. He permitted 2 women to testify that Trump had assaulted them in similar circumstances. All of that having been said, rape, at the risk of getting graphic, requires the insertion of a penis in a vagina, and the jury found unanimously that did not happen. But sexual assault requires the unconsented to touching of the private parts of another person in an effort to produce a sexual encounter. And the jury found that that did happen. The jury also found that this happened in 1996. However, 4 years ago, when Trump was in the White House, he defamed the plaintiff by calling her a liar and a variety of other things. All of that together, plus punitive damages, produced $5 million. $5 million for a non-rape is a lot of money, even for a defendant with the assets of Donald Trump. So this is a significant rebuke to him. However, he's got Teflon skin. I mean, this happened to any other person running for president. The party whose nomination he seeks would say, forget about it. But Republicans are so beholden to Trump. His behavior is so outrageous and tabloid-like that nothing seems to shock the voters.
Judge, could you give us your opinion as a jurist? How would you have found if you were in this case? I mean, based on the the facts that we know and what's publicly available to you, do you think he did it?
Well, I wasn't in the courtroom, so I really can't assess her credibility. The whole case rises or falls on whether you believe the plaintiff, and the jury, with the exception of the rape charge, the actual rape, the insertion rape, the jury believed her. I mean, it's not for the judge to second guess the jury. I thought Joe Tacopina, full disclosure, a friend of mine for many years, did a superb job of cross-examining the plaintiff, but without the defendant there, it's a mistake Trump made to look her in the eye and deny it. Her version of these events was essentially uncontradicted. Now, at the last minute, Trump, while playing golf in Scotland, turned to a bunch of reporters who were in tow and said, I'm not going to finish this round of golf because I'm flying back to New York. I don't want to, but I'm going to testify in this crazy case. I don't even know who this woman is, but I'm going to testify. This was after the case was over. The judge heard this and said, you know what? If he wants to testify, he can come. But if he's going to come to the courthouse on Monday, we have to know on Sunday because of the security concerns. Sunday came and went, no notification, no Trump, no testimony. He loses.
Is there an appeal process for things like this?
Yes. Yes, the appeal has to be based on not the jury's assessment of her credibility, but the decisions made by the judge. So did the judge make a mistake by allowing the Access Hollywood tape to be played 5 times? Did the judge make an error by allowing these 2 ladies to testify to similar encounters with Trump, unrelated to this? They didn't even know E. Jean Carroll, but similar events in the past. It is judicial error of such a magnitude as to deny the defendant a fair trial, which is the linchpin to an appeal. Short of that, could be harmless error. Yeah, he said a couple of things wrong. They were within his discretion. It didn't affect the outcome. Or, yeah, all these things that he did amounted to an unfair trial. So that's what the appellate court will look at. Meantime, he'll have to post $5 million in cash with the clerk of the court because they don't trust him to pay the judgment. The former president of the United States.
It's kind of embarrassing to consider just the depths at which we have gotten to in the United States, that these kinds of things are public matter and have to be taken into consideration, considering that he is a leading presidential candidate. It's not as if he's an also ran. He's a former president of the United States.
Correct.
It's things like that when my libertarian friends criticize Ronald Reagan on his policies, which Judge, there are absolutely plenty of things for us, the war on drugs, the way that he handled the Soviet Union, things like that. But in regards to his actual character and his behavior and his mannerisms and the way that Reagan managed to represent the United States as a leader of the free world, it really makes things like this make me miss Ronald Reagan. How about you?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, Ronald Reagan never even went into the Oval Office without a blazer or a suit jacket on. That's how revered he was for the office. I'll tell you a story. Roger Stone shows up to meet Ronald Reagan at Reagan's invitation. It's the middle of February. It's freezing cold. It's snowing out. He's not wearing socks. Nancy Reagan says, you can't go in the Oval Office like that without socks on. The president wouldn't permit anybody dressed that way in the Oval Office. Roger says, tell the president I took a public vow never to wear socks until the Russians leave Afghanistan. Reagan says, come on in. I'll change the rules for you, Roger.
See, these are the kinds of little stories that you don't get anywhere else.
I mean, that's Stone's version. I don't know if it's true or partially true, but the point was a cultured, civilized, dignified man, self-effacing humor, as to whom you couldn't imagine the truthfulness of allegations about him that we now know are the case with Trump.
Man, this is interesting stuff. I love that story. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson, your host. I'm joined now by our good friend, Judge Andrew Napolitano. He is the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, which you can download on any of your mobile devices. It's a great show, and much of his coverage is getting tens of millions of views around the world as he's interviewed leading lights in regards to the issues surrounding the conflict between Putin and Ukraine. We will talk about that maybe perhaps a little later. But I'd like to talk to you, Judge, about something a little bit more domestic. As I understand it, the role of the CIA when it was first founded, after it was the Office of Strategic Services, was that it had a mandate that it was only to operate overseas. Now, we've seen ample evidence that has shown that the CIA has conducted domestic operations. But in regards to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, many people for years have pointed to a causal link between actions that the CIA took and the murder of the president in 1963, I believe. But is it possible that the Central Intelligence Agency, which tried to kill Castro multiple times, which tried other assassination operations and has failed multiple times, is it possible that in this one instance that his nephew Robert F. Kennedy is correct in pointing the finger at the CIA and the assassination of the president of the United States? Your thoughts?
Well, it's certainly possible. In fact, I believe it's probable. What's fascinating to me is not RFK Jr.'s personal courage. That's well documented. It's the fact that the news media now takes this seriously and covers it. I mean, until RFK Jr. said this just a week ago, this concept that the CIA did it was the tinfoil was relegated to the tinfoil hat domain of crazy conspiracy theorists. The best book, and there are hundreds of books out there, is called JFK and the Unspeakable. The author's last name is Forrest, forgetting his first name, which nobody had heard of until Oliver Stone held it up on Bill Maher's show one day, and then it became a runaway bestseller. And this outlines all of the CIA's means, motive, and opportunity to do it. Back to Roger Stone, wrote a great book about LBJ's advanced knowledge of and involvement in the killing of JFK. Could they have done it? Well, yes, the CIA has become a personal army, a secret army, and the CIA applies its trade in the United States. A couple of stories. Two former governors of states in the United States, I won't tell you what state, but they're about 1,500 miles apart, have told me personally that in their state houses was an office manned by the CIA. And when the governors inquired about it, the head of the office said, yes, absolutely, I do work for the CIA. You can kick me out, you can close the office down, and my successor will not introduce him or herself to you, but we will be here. We all know from documents revealed by the FISA court that the CIA is involved in domestic surveillance. If you read the charter of the CIA, it absolutely prohibits two things. It prohibits all domestic surveillance, and it prohibits it involved in law enforcement. Those two clauses of the charter have been violated. Last story. In June of 1963, JFK made the second greatest speech of his career after his inaugural address, in which he said, the nuclear arms race is over. We're going to engage in peaceful trade and commerce with the Soviet Union. In response to that speech, the guy who signed into existence the CIA wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post praising the speech to the skies and saying the CIA should be disbanded. I didn't intend a private army, and I forbade half of what they now do. The author of that piece, Harry Truman. In those days, the Washington Post had 3 editions, morning, afternoon, and evening. Harry Truman writes a piece about the CIA. It appears in the morning edition, gone in the afternoon and the evening edition. And 4 months later, JFK is dead. I know I said that was the last story. This is the last story. Donald Trump told me personally, he also said this publicly when he was running against Mrs. Clinton in 2016. He will open up the JFK files. So it's now 2 weeks before the end of his presidency, and he calls me to go over with me my view of people he was granting last minute pardons to. Oh, no need for me to mention their names. And I said, Mr. President, I know you're not happy this time in your life. You only have 2 weeks left in your presidency. Remember your promise to the public and to me to open up the JFK files. When are you going to do it? He said to me, Judge, if you saw what, quote, they showed me, close quote, you wouldn't open up those files either. Someday when we're on the phone and we don't have, raises his voice, 15 people listening to us, I'll tell you. So who are they and what did they show him? Maybe someday Trump will reveal it.
Boy, that is fascinating stuff. Good morning. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, you're listening to Judge Andrew Napolitano. He is the host of the Judging Freedom podcast. He's joining us now. We are discussing the news that RFK Jr., who is a presidential candidate and the nephew of the former president, John F. Kennedy, has pointed a finger at the CIA for their involvement in the assassination of John F. Kennedy Jr. Now, you've already sort of laid out like what the potential motives might be here, but Judge, I'd like to talk to you just very briefly about the character of RFK Jr. Because whenever a presidential candidate spends their entire life and their entire career fighting against my values, talking about jailing climate deniers, going after the Koch brothers, and anybody who dissents. Whenever that person then declares they're running for president and they start saying things that I actually agree with, my spidey sense starts going off, Judge. And I have to say that just because RFK Jr. is starting to say some things that I actually agree with, now he's talking about free speech. Right now, he's talking about, about how terrible it is that people are being debanked and, cancel culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I get very suspicious. A lot of people, they jump on board and they're like, oh, this is great. We need to support him and all this kind of stuff. He's saying things that we need to hear. That's not what he was saying 6 months ago, Judge. It wasn't what he was saying, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. He's talking about people like yourself and myself being jailed for denying climate change. Can I ask you personally how you feel about this RFK guy, or are you on board with him?
I feel as you do. I feel like, no surprise. I feel exactly as you do. I mean, I cheer him on when he condemns mandatory vaccines and when he condemns lockdowns and when he argues in favor of your control of your own body. But let's face it, he's still a big government liberal Democrat who would use the power of the government to affect people's lives and probably would expand the size and scope of the government. But I have a lot of libertarian friends, as you do, who like what he says and find him appealing to libertarians. You know that there's a boomlet among libertarians to have me run as his vice presidential candidate. What the heck would we agree on? I mean, to me, taxation is theft. To me, the greatest enemy of personal freedom is the government. So I agree with you. Is he changing his tune? Or is he getting smarter at age 69? I don't know what the answer to that is, but in the vast array of issues which the now imperial presidency needs to address, he is libertarian in only a few. They may be the loudest few, and they may be the ones that touches you and me and your listeners and mine the most, but it's just a few. Anybody who doesn't believe in the freedom of speech is an enemy of personal liberty.
I agree. And I don't know that tigers change their stripes. I'm always very skeptical whenever Democrats start saying things that I agree with. Judge, can I ask you, you mentioned his age, he's 69 years old. Donald Trump would be, is he older than Joe Biden? Joe Biden, the oldest president ever and running for reelection? There is a minimum age to run for president. Should there be a maximum age?
I don't think so. I think it's really up to the judgment of the American people. I think the Democrats don't really want Joe to run for reelection. They're banking on Republicans being foolish enough to nominate Trump. I agree with the standard thinking on this, that the only way Joe wins is if Trump is the Republican nominee. But if the Republican nominee is anybody else, Joe cannot win because of his obvious mental deficiency and terrible stewardship of the executive branch of the government. In New Jersey, there is a maximum for judges. You have to retire at the age of 70. You can come back the day after your 70th birthday if you're deemed to be mentally and physically fit. But there's no maximum age for governors. So there's no maximum age for anybody in the Constitution. You know, the framers themselves didn't live beyond their sixth generation, beyond, age 60 or so. Jefferson was fortunate enough to live into his 80s, but that was an exception.
Yeah, it's just it seems as if, people are discussing Joe Biden's mental competency, and you have to have mental competency tests to do very important jobs here in the United States. If you want to go work for Raytheon and create missiles to blow up the Middle East, you've got to pass a competency test. But to actually be the person who decides whether or not to use those missiles, there's no competency test. I mean,
Correct.
how do you feel about that? I mean, it
Well,
does.
when I became a judge, the scrutiny is extraordinary. As you know, I was also nominated by Ronald Reagan to the federal bench, and that's another level of scrutiny. Trump has often joked that he could never pass any of these tests. The American people will vote for me, but these crazy bureaucrats that conduct these tests about every time you looked at somebody cross-eyed, I could never pass. You're right. I mean, the scrutiny to work in a nuclear power plant or to get a top secret security clearance as a 21-year-old part-time National Guardsman from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, is far more exacting than the scrutiny to which the press and the public put presidential candidates. When the press was the eyes and ears of the public, before they became beholden to the deep state, to the CIA, and to the FBI, leak information to them in return for them printing what the CIA and the FBI want printed. The press used to do these things. They don't do it anymore. The alternate press does it. The websites you and I consult every day do it, but not the mainstream.
Talk to me, Judge, about your thoughts about voting. We know that the United States is a constitutional republic, but it has democratic aspects. We vote for our leaders. We vote for our masters every 2 years. But in regards to the right to vote, say that it's 18 years old and above. Some people argue that perhaps some form of a competency test before you can go and assert force on other people is a reasonable regulation. If you consider that voting is authorizing the use of force to be done against a certain part of society, then it makes more sense to me to argue for something like that. I think you probably agree that voting is violence by another means, right? Or it's, the least amount of violence possible in order to enact violence against those who would break the laws that are being enacted. So would you say that it's not anti-libertarian to argue that there should be some restrictions before someone should vote, perhaps some level of competency?
We might all be happier and richer under a benign monarch than under a republic that can vote itself wealth transfers. Jefferson and Hamilton hated each other, but the one thing they agreed on was, as soon as the public recognizes that their representatives can bring home the biggest piece of the pie, that the public treasury is a public trough, they will send people to Washington who will bring back the biggest piece of that trough. So the Republicans, for example, are not interested in shrinking government. They're just interested in their version of government. None of them, except Thomas Massey's and Ron Paul's and you and me and the people that listen to our shows, are interested in shrinking government. The voters always want more free stuff. And as long as they can get the free stuff by a nonviolent act of voting, they don't care about the rights of the haves. They only care about the goodies going to the have-nots. If anybody's interested in this theory, it's Hans Hermann Hoppe, Democracy, the God That Failed. I don't know what the answer is. Hoppe argues that a benign monarch who derived wealth from the wealth of the country would be more interested in the freedom with which we can create wealth rather than the redistribution of wealth, which is what Republicans and Democrats do They just have a different version of it. Republicans want to redistribute wealth to corporations, and Democrats want to redistribute wealth to individuals, but they both want to engage in theft.
We'll see it now. If only King George III had had a copy of Democracy, the God That Failed, perhaps that might have won over the colonists over Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Judge, I've got to let you go, but I want you to share with us, for our listeners, who you've got coming up on your great show, the Judging Freedom Podcast. Will you share that with us?
I have the most tenacious former member of the CIA who comes on with me now twice a week, Larry Johnson. Who'll be on with us at 3:00 Eastern today. Do you know that the plans for the Ukraine offensive are now available on the internet? How the hell does that happen? What kind of an offensive are they going to wage if their plans are on the internet? And if we know it, of course, President Putin knows it as well.
Say, this is why I get a little skeptical when people are like, "Oh, the CIA did Kennedy," and I'm like, they just don't seem that competent to me, Judge. But that's a discussion for another day. Judge Andrew Napolitano, our good friend, thank you very much for your time. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
God bless you. All the best, Austin.
Thank you, and you as well, sir. What do you think of Judge Andrew Napolitano? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. And the world conspires against us. The de-dollarization continues. Will the United States maintain the reserve currency of the world? We'll talk to Kevin Demerit of Lear Capital when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
The Cantina Crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist. Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Hope you enjoyed Judge Ainer Napolitano on the show there. Make sure you smash that like button if you're enjoying the content that you see today. We're glad to have a nice big audience, and I know that he's definitely a big driver of views to the program, so we're super grateful for him. Gold prices have jumped 8% since the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Yeah, the precious metal passed $2,000 per ounce last week, traded at 21 cents below its all-time high. Investors have been flocking to gold as a safe haven with a lot of the banking turmoil that's going on and weighing on other assets. But the rest of the world is saying to themselves, why should we hold on to the dollar? Countries like Iran and Russia and China have begun the process of de-dollarization. What will that mean for gold prices and for our economy? Joining us now to discuss is Kevin Demerit of Lear Capital. He is the founder of Lear Capital and is joining us live right now. Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Austin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've kind of had threats overseas for decades about the process of moving away from the petrodollar. China, Russia, Iran, our enemies have always sort of threatened to do something like this, but it's actually starting to happen now. Can you talk to us about this?
Yeah, I think it really started with Russia about 5 or 6 years ago. They started to move away from the dollar, started accumulating gold. And then China, Iran, a lot of these other countries, Brazil, have seemed to follow now. So I think because of inflation, because of our $1 trillion yearly deficits, people just outside the country are looking at it saying, would I rather hold some currency that's going down in value, or I'd rather hold something, physical and tangible that can offset the inflation that we have here in the United States. So that's what they're doing, and they're doing it at a fairly rapid pace. Matter of fact, last year was a record pace. They purchased over 1,100 tons, which is about a quarter of all of the mining supply of the world. So we're really starting to see the acceleration of, getting rid of dollars and moving over to something else, gold being one of those something else's.
And it's not just our enemies overseas. It's actually starting to spread to Europe. I was reading over the last week that Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, was saying that Europe might be too dependent on dollars. So we can't even necessarily count on our allies, can we?
No, I think everybody's kind of in the same boat. If you're holding dollars and the inflation rate is 5%, let's say, would you rather hold on to those dollars and lose 5% of purchasing power a year, or move over to something tangible that actually offsets the rate of inflation? So it doesn't really matter. This has nothing to do with, hey, we're allies, we're enemies. This is more about just fiscal responsibility. And if in the United States we were holding on to somebody else's currency that was losing value at 5 or 7% a year, hopefully a politician would make the right decision, if possible, to get rid of that and move over to something that's going to be more fiscally sound.
Is it realistic to think though, I mean, with China's policies and the you know the instability of their own currency, that they would actually be successful in trading oil I don't know how to pronounce it, yen or yuan, not quite sure. Maybe you can fill
Yuan,
us
yeah.
in.
Yeah, for them, it's just much more convenient. A lot of countries have to take their currency, move it into US dollars, purchase oil, purchase all the commodities, quite frankly. And if you don't have to go through that mess, then it's much easier for everybody to, have free trade. So that's what a lot of countries are doing, especially China. We're having a little bit of issues with, Saudi Arabia, and they walk over there and put some plans together for oil trade in their currency. And the more that happens, the less dependent those countries are on the US dollar, and our US dollar falls even further. And if you get a fall in the US dollar on top of the inflation, there could be a real mess in the economy later on this year. That's why I think a lot of people are talking about, one of the reasons a lot of people are talking about recession.
I'm reading this morning on Reuters this headline: Gold rebounds as U.S. inflation data boosts Fed rate hike pause bet. So essentially, what we're saying here is that gold was starting to slack a bit, but it is coming back stronger because of what's happening over at the Federal Reserve. And with the debt ceiling fight that's going on right now, the economic instability and the bank failures that are occurring across the country right now, there's probably never been a better time to say, hey, it's time to hedge our bets and get into the gold market. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah, I think the Fed is just absolutely trapped right now. If these bank failures that we've seen were back in 2008, we would be hearing a lot of talk about the Fed lowering interest rates and printing money like we did when we saw AIG and some of the other failures back in 2008. But they can't do that right now. Or inflation, if they were going to print out money and lower interest rates, would zoom to 15%, just like we saw in the late 70s. So they hold off as long as possible. A few more institutions, and in my opinion, the commercial real estate market's in a horrible mess and caused some of the banking crisis. Those big institutions start to break, and then the really tough decisions are going to have to be made, and investors need to get prepared, for that later on this year, because I think that's exactly where we're headed.
How do you feel about the Federal Reserve's push to create a central bank digital currency, essentially an electronic currency, something like a Bitcoin, but instead controlled by the Fed? What do you think about that?
Yeah, they don't like Bitcoin for individuals, but they want to go create one for themselves. And I understand why. You can have a lot of control over people with a digital currency. You don't pay your taxes, they don't like your political stance, what have you. Flip a switch and we're just going to lock up your money. So from that aspect, it's extremely scary. From another aspect, hey, look, you don't have to carry around, paper dollars, and they don't have to print the paper dollars. I get their side of it, but from a privacy standpoint, we've lost a lot of privacy over the past 10 or 15 years. That's just another big one from the financial side that I don't really think people want to lose.
A lot of my friends, Kevin, who were big into Bitcoin and trying to get me into Dogecoin and trying to get me this coin and that coin. I mean, I admit that I do have some Bitcoin, but I don't mess with a lot of the other altcoins. Have come to me in recent months and said, Austin, what is the phone number for their capital? Because at the end of the day, there's really nothing like the security of actually holding physical metals. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of the Bitcoin people, quite frankly, with the volatility that we saw over the past 6 or 7 months we're starting to get, a younger group of people giving us a phone call and saying, hey, look, I own Bitcoin, I own some of these altcoins, and we want to move over to something a little bit more tangible, just because of the volatility. So, gold has a 5,000-year track record, and Bitcoin has what, a 12-year track record, 10-year track record? Big difference. And I think that's going to show up when you get a lot of volatility in the market. Gold's going to shine a little bit brighter right now, especially with the government, and all the rules and regulations that they're trying to place on Bitcoin. Nobody really knows what's going to go on there. So again, just the stability of 5,000 years as money, and then the central bank still using it as money, I think kind of give it a little bit better track record.
Yeah, for sure. What's funny is that we advertise Lear Capital's excellent financial services here on the Wake Up America show, and we get great feedback from many of the guests on the show who come on. They hear me talking about what Lear Capital is doing, and our friend, one of our guests, BX Bullet, bought some gold from Lear Capital last week, and she was telling me about how easy it was to acquire the physical metals, how fast it was, and some of the benefits that she was offered, which my wife and I had a really interesting conversation with one of your sales representatives as well when we were talking about getting into a gold IRA. And he was talking about physical metals, if you decided to purchase and acquire them and hold them on your person rather than hold them in an IRA account, is the taxing when it comes to buying and sell. Lear Capital, let's say if I were to purchase some gold and silver from Lear today, I can actually sell that back to you at any time if I wanted. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, you just give us a phone call. We lock in the pricing prior to you sending the metal, so you know exactly what you're going to receive before you ever send the metal back to us. And then if you keep the box that we send the metals to you in, then it's real easy. We send you another label, cover the insurance back to us. Takes a few days to get back to us, and then just either a bank wire or a check back to you. So very easy to sell. But again, people have to remember this is a physical metal. It isn't a stock, so you can't just click a button and get your money back into your account.
Yeah, no, I know, I get it. But my wife and I, we're kind of paranoid and we like the idea of holding on to physical metals. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the banks. And with all of these bank collapses that are going on, it's made us very nervous. My buddy, John Miltimore, he's the managing editor over at the Foundation of Economic Education. He hit me up the other day and he's like, Austin, I need that Lear Capital number, which I'm definitely going to be giving away here at the end of this segment. But I wanted to give you an opportunity. Kevin, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go and before I share all the goods on how they can get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, I think just people really need to think about, getting prepared for what's coming. Janet Yellen said the Fed will need great skill and good luck to bring down inflation. Well, some of the skill and luck has been tossed off to the side because you really have to think about, the possibilities of a recession later on this year. 2008 started with AIG and a few others where the government bailed them out. And the same thing's going to happen here. It's the same script. We're going to help a few of these banks get bailed out, and then later on, maybe not, and some of the other larger companies. So people just need to get prepared and get educated on what's happening in the economy.
Yeah, for sure. And I know people have a lot of questions, Kevin, that we don't have time to get into today. So that's why I'm going to give them the phone number here as soon as I let you go. Kevin, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for your sponsorship of the Wake Up America show. Keep up the great work over there at Lear Capital. We look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Glad to be back on, Austin. Have a great day.
Yeah, you as well. If you like Kevin Demerit, let us know. Here's the phone number for Lear Capital. It's 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175. I know you've got a lot of questions that need to get answered. We just unfortunately don't have time for all of it. But I want to remind you that it's never been easier to sink some of your assets into gold and silver because the security, I tell you what, you can buy gold and silver, but the security that you get is even more valuable. I'm sick and tired of putting my money into all of these risky stocks and then it's just exploded the next day. My wife and I are now looking at the long term and we're saying to ourselves, we need something that's going to maintain value. We've got money set aside. It's losing value to inflation. If you're holding cash right now, you may say to yourself, well, I'm just going to hold on to my cash. I'm not going to invest it. I'm not going to save it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to keep it in a mattress. The more the Federal Reserve prints, the more they're stealing value from you, right? But if you put it into gold, gold will slowly increase in value over time. It's shown it time and time again. Give them a call, 1-800-885-2175 today. Tell them Austin Peterson sent ya, or visit learaustin.com. They will send you a free gold and silver information packet. All your questions will be answered right there. learaustin.com. When we come back from the commercial break, I will talk about something that I don't know what it is yet because I hadn't prepared for it to be 8:45 and me to have no more topics in my rundowns. So I will go search frantically to find something to talk about for another 10 to 12 minutes before the end of the show. Want to see me dance, monkey dance? We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, you know, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1. You can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2. Most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting Liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Hope you're feeling good on a Wednesday. Boy, this show just flew by. I knew it would. because we had so many awesome guests, even though at the very beginning of the show, right in the middle of my interview with Van Skin, like computer just reset. It's just, this computer's been driving me insane. But what can you do? At least the internet is working, right? Internet is working good. We're glad to see that, hear that. Lots of exciting things happening here on the Wake Up America show. You saw our new alliance with John Burke. He's going to be a bi-weekly guest on the show. He has decided to generously sponsor the Wake Up America show. We've got Lear Capital that you just heard from. They're generously sponsoring the Wake Up America show. It's been really exciting to see how many people have stepped in and said, we believe in the message of freedom. We believe what Austin Peterson is doing. And my lovely wife, Stephanie, who does a lot for this show, by the way, a lot behind the scenes to help things like AP for Liberty Shop, get out all the orders and things like that. Honestly, I couldn't do this without her. And I'm super grateful for her. And I'm grateful for you as well, because many of you, the monthly sponsors to this show, help to keep us stable and steady and strong. Because I never know, right, when I'm going to have an advertiser. Some advertisers come, some advertisers go. But you monthly supporters are the ones who guarantee that this show will continue on a month-to-month basis. So I'm grateful for you. If you're not a monthly sponsor of the show, you can do so at a very low rate, $2.99 a month here on YouTube, to help us to continue to stay stable and strong. I've got some great ideas and big plans for the future to continue to spread these ideas. And if you want to help spread the message of liberty, you can help us by becoming a monthly subscriber. You can do it here on YouTube, but if you say to yourself, Austin, I don't want YouTube to get a cut, I'd like to give the whole burrito just to you and to Stephanie to help to grow this show and this network, then visit our website, wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. And if you head over there to that page, you'll see we've got multiple different support levels. You do get benefits. You're entered into monthly prize drawings. Last month, we gave away an AK-47, like a real one. Matt Unruh should be getting that any day now. It's on its way down there to Georgia. And this month, we're going to give away some prizes from apforlibertyshop.com, and you get a 20% discount. So it's not like, oh, hey, I'm just giving Austin money and I get nothing. You get stuff for supporting the show as a monthly sponsor. So if you don't have your 20% off discount code, just let me know. Send me a DM and I will send that over to you. Okay, so you asked Austin, what are you going to talk about in that last 10 minutes? Because, wow, you didn't have anything to talk about. So get this. This is actually perfect timing. So my wife, Stephanie, has been talking about her nails and how broken they are because she had like her nails done when her mom came to visit about a month ago. And, you know, you kind of don't think about it as a guy because you're just like, okay, you get your nails done. Like, what do they do? Well, apparently there's all kinds of different treatments that you can do for your nails. So check this out. I saw this story this morning while I was looking on the commercial break. Warning, distressing content for those who might be concerned. Take a look at this. This is a woman who was left with mangled fingertips.
That's the nail that the whole finger around this area was black a few weeks ago. I thought I was going to lose this part of my finger, to be fair. It was that bad. The nail had actually gone up to there. So this is an improvement, the growth there.
Gross.
It's all sort of clustered underneath. It's absolutely disgusting to look at, of course.
Wow.
But yeah, when that went that short, it wasn't painful. It just peeled off like ripping a bit of paper.
Oy.
So that's my left hand, and this is my right hand. So
look at this.
Just peeling off.
Going under my... And you thought that the British people's teeth were bad. No, it's not a British thing. So apparently this is what happens when ladies are doing these gel nails, right? A woman left with mangled fingertips following a manicure, desperately trying to nail down the cause of her mystery condition. Sure, yeah. Lisa Dewey said she had been getting manicures for years until recently she developed severe pain and inflammation and her nails began falling off. She said she was worried she would lose the whole finger, right? The pain and signs of infection seemed to go away after she got antibiotics. So the hospital custodian got her nails done again in April. She tried acrylic nails instead, and then her nails just started peeling away from the nail bed. Wouldn't you think you would stop at that point? But she says she described it as paper tearing away from her fingers, leaving her in so much pain she could barely move her hands. She says that the pain is debilitating. She can't wash her daughter's hair, hold a pen, wash dishes, or even put on a seatbelt. She has to ask her husband to do things like that for her, right? Ladies, what are you doing, right? Apparently, some of the chemicals that are used in these gel nail manicures are known to trigger contact allergies. You can get a severe rash and all that. Stephanie was telling me the other day about how bad her nails were after that gel one that she got done. I don't know. Kind of weird. I'm glad I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff as a dude. Although a lot of dudes do that stuff. I'll tell you, they go and get manicures, but you know, it's all about gender bending these days. Not for me. All right, I got to run. It's been a great show. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you smash that like button before you leave. And real quick, before we do go, make sure you visit ap4libertyshop.com. I know a lot of you out there are monthly sponsors and you're saying to yourself, hey, it's time to get some 4th of July stuff. Well, the 4th of July collection is available. Just head over there. We're selling a lot of Ron Swanson shirts that say history began on the 4th of July. Everything before that was a mistake. You can get that exclusively at ap4libertyshop.com. Visit the shop, get your OO government shirt or your OO taxes bag. Those are unisex shirts, so men or women for all or gender benders can enjoy it over at ap4libertyshop.com. Cheeky Mare, Tolly Owens, Chris Morrill, Robbie Theraman, Al Johnson, Barney Stiles, Sarah Palacios, Joni Rankin, Dwayne Lauderdale, all of our friends, Corey C., Jeremy Berenson over on YouTube, the Cantina crew, I salute you. Rumblers, the people watching us over on Rumble right now, Media Man, Dan, The Onion Dip, Dual Wayne, all of our friends over on Rumble. Make sure you click that like. And if you're following us on Rumble, make sure that you subscribe to the channel over on Rumble. We've almost got 400 followers there, and it's been nice to see a nice big audience over on rumble.com. We're growing every single day. We've got great partners. We've got sponsors. We've got monthly show supporters. Very soon, we're going to reach a rate of explosive growth on the Wake Up America show. And then I'll have no excuse. I'll have to go hire Vance Ginn and give him his own show and do our own network, get the judge to do something. We'll have to go out and get a studio and bring people in and start hiring people like crazy. We're almost to that point right now. We're getting there. I'm very excited about the future, and I've got some big dreams and plans for you. But you got to keep watching, keep supporting, keep clicking that like button, and invite a friend to join us. Of course, visit ap4libertyshop.com. Get the best freedom merch that there is on the internet. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP4Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire. Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.